Hey friends, welcome back to the next video, and again it's about DAX. But before we do this, let me actually rename the current page and call this ranking and dynamic ranking. Okay, like that for instance, right? That's just the name I'm gonna give it, and then I press Ctrl S to save it, so my report is saved. Alright, so let's actually explore how we can calculate the cumulative sales or running total sales for the prior year. And I'm using this specific example because I want to show you a very, very important point you need to understand when it comes to time intelligence and why it is so crucial to have a proper dates table. So let's get into that. Let me click on the plus symbol here, and then let's get started and say we would like to see, maybe visualize here at first, our sales again. I'm referring to my dates table, and I'm using here the date. And I want to get rid of the day and also get rid of the quarter in here. I only want to display here the year and the month. That is totally fine. That's enough. And then I want to display my total sales. So let me check total sales. All right, here we go. And also make this a little bigger. So the formatting option here is missing currently, still missing at the on object from Power BI, which is this window here. So I need to go into the formatting option here and then adjust the font size here. And simply type in here, for instance, 14. Okay. So this should be good enough on your screens. So far, so good. We have the total sales. Now, in order to calculate the running total, we know we can do that using an expression. And if you remember, you could pause the video, but otherwise, let's just do it together. So for that, let's actually go to the cylinder icon here, to our data, and right click on the measures table, and then create a new measure. Now this measure here should be our cumulative sales. So I can name this, for instance, cumulative sales. So cum sales is equal to, and then I go to new line. And then I'm using the calculate function. Remember, because the cumulative function is the same as, for instance, time intelligence functions, we need to modify the context, the filter context, to get actually from October, for instance, not only the October value, but actually all the prior values, including October. So for that, we use calculate. Then we refer to our measure, which is the total sales in our case. And then we need to filter, use the filter function, filter. In this case, our table. The table is now either selected by the all function or the all selected function. In the first example, when we created this formula in our first data set, the advanced data set, the first one, we used all selected. And that's why I want to refer all selected again. And here I want to use from the dates table, the date column, this one here. This just means that we ignore the filters which are applied on the current, in this case, the current visual. And then we need to filter it down again, simply by doing, in this case, that the dates table, the date, this one here, is less or equal to the maximum, in this case, of, that's here, for instance, the order date from the orders table. So let me select this one here. So let's try it like that. Let's close this parenthesis here, and then also close the calculate function. Okay. And beside this, let's actually take this one here, Control C to copy it. I go back to my formatting here. I go to edit, and I just paste this inside. Click on format. Let's do its magic. And I have a bug in here. Interesting. Let's just check that. Is there a parenthesis missing? Let me just check. Total sales, filter, all selected. Dates table, date, that should be fine. Dates is equal to, okay, I got, actually, let's just check. Here, which is like that. Let me just press enter, let's just see. And that seems to be the case. Okay, I got one parenthesis too much. No, I don't get that. Filter. And let me close this here as well. Let's press enter. Out. That should be fine, actually. So let me just copy this again. Maybe I was a little too fast. So where is it? The cumulative sales. Here we go. I take this here, Control C to copy it. I go back to my here, and let me just paste this inside, Control V to paste it. And obviously one of the parentheses is missing, so let me format it again. And here we go. Okay, let's copy it, and then go back to our Power BI report, paste it inside, and then let's just evaluate that. Press enter. Say this is a dollar amount. I would like to have 2 decimal numbers. Press enter in here. And then we can simply visualize that here. Go to cumulative sales. And we can see that this works. Okay. So here we have the first value, then here this is the sum of the first two values, and so on. Right? Okay. And of course, at the end here in May, we have the last value here. That is totally fine. Now, in order to get the cumulative sales, but shifted 1 year, so for the last year, what we need to do is at first create the formula or the calculation DAX expression for the prior year sales. And you already know that there are two options which you can use, which is the same period last year, as well as the date add function. Now, I personally prefer the date add function because it's more flexible, as we have already learned. So let's do the measure with the date add function. Click on new measure in here, and then say for this one, this will be simply the total sales. Let's call that total sales ALY for last year is equal to, and I go to new line and say this is simply calculate. The expression is the total sales. And then we say for the filter, we're using the date add function, date add. And we say for the dates, we're referring to the dates table date, this one here. And then for the comma, for the intervals, -1. And then for the interval itself, it is the year, right? Because we want to shift 1 year back. So like that. And then we close the calculate function and we should be good to go. So let me just press enter. Okay. And now let's actually take a look at that. Let's click on total sales last year. And of course, we'd like to format this. Go also here and click on the dollar symbol. And also on the decimal, only 2 decimal numbers. Okay. And now we can clearly see that this value here is appearing here. This value here is appearing here, and so on. Okay. So that totally works exactly like we expected. So July was the first entry in this data set. And that's why it started here also in July 2022 in here. And of course, now we could compare the total sales with the prior year sales, right? But our goal is actually to show these values here. So the 34,000 and so on. And then there should not be 31,000, but the 66,000 and so on. Now, actually, all we need to do is modify our cumulative sales a little bit. Because instead of referring here or referencing the total sales, we could simply replace this with the total sales last year. So all we need to do actually is Control A to copy everything. So Control A to select it, then Control C to copy everything. And then let's create a new measure. Right click, new measure. And then in here, we just paste it. Like that. And then of course we need to rename it because we can only give the name once. So last year, like that. And then instead of referring to total sales, we simply type in here and refer to the total sales last year. So that's actually everything we need to do. So you can see that if we have, let's say, a scaffold for our formula, then we can just use any kind of measure. So I could also use, for instance, total profit here instead of this one. So we can simply replace just one part of the complete formula and then get exactly the result we need. So let's actually try that out and see what the problem is here. So let me just check this box. And then let's actually go in here. And now let's actually visualize that. Let's make this a little bigger. Say cumulative sales last year. Select again the dollar symbol first and 2 decimal numbers. And now let's actually place it inside the view. Let's go in here and either use on object here and edit, or I personally prefer simply drag and drop it inside. Like that. Okay. So we got values here, which in this case is 34,000 and so on. And then we got 64,000 and then we got 99,000 and so on. So we can see that this seems to work. Kind of, right? Why do I say kind of? And please take a closer look what actually happens now. I can see that this value here is the same, right? That is fine. I can see, for instance, this value here, the 99,700 and so on, is the same value as here. So this cumulative sales also work. But if you take a closer look, for instance, at August, we can see that there is 66,000, which is the sum of those two values. That is fine. But in here, we got only 64,000. So the value here is different from this value. So why is that? Because the next value, for instance, is totally fine, right? And if you take a closer look at others, for instance, here we got 201, is also different from 203, even though the value before, this 146,000, is the same here. So what's going on here, right? That's a good question. And here, this is exactly why it is so crucial to be aware what kind of dates table you use. And that's why this, I think, is a very, very important and good lesson here. Now, if we take a closer look at our cumulative sales here, this formula for last year, we say in here that the dates table should be less or equal to the maximum orders date. Now, because we reference here the orders date from the order table, we cannot be sure that actually all the dates are included. What I mean by that is, if we do it like that, then it might be the case that, for instance, here in August 2021, we had certain sale dates which are not part of August 2022. So that means, for instance, we would have a sale day which appears here, which is not appearing here, and the other way around. And if that's the case, then actually we do not really compare apples to apples. And this is why we have, this is why there are differences in here, for instance. So obviously there are sales days in 2021 missing, which are part of 2022, and the other way around. So in order to fix this, we would have to go back to our formula in here. And instead of referencing here the order date, we could reference here the dates table date. So if I go in here and say dates table date, this one here, like that, then watch what happens with this 64,000 and so on, for instance, or this 201,000. If we now press the checkbox here, we now see that these numbers have adjusted. And we can clearly see that this 66,000 and so on is now the same value as here. The same is true, by the way, for the 203,000 and so on, and also for all the other values. So now, the reason why this works is because when we're referencing here the dates table, we can be sure that all the dates are considered. Even dates where, for instance, are part of the orders date of the orders table in 2021, but not in 2022. Simply because, for instance, there is the 31st of August, and in 2021 we haven't sold anything, and in 2022 we have sold something, right? This could be the case. But this is completely ignored if we reference the dates table, because the dates table always contains all the dates. So hopefully you understood the issue and also have seen what the solution is. Because this might be very helpful if you're dealing with your own data and you do any kind of calculation like that, and then you find differences, then please remember this lecture, or feel free to go through the course again, and maybe you'll find that this is the issue. Okay. So, as I said, hopefully that was helpful. You have seen the problem, we have fixed it together, and that's it actually for this video. So, thanks a lot for watching, and also, then hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.